I'm Dean, I'm 34, and for the past 5 years, I've basically been my parents' unpaid accountant, handyman, and emotional support system all rolled into one. Rent, electricity, internet, even that fancy coffee machine my mom swore she needed for her blood pressure. Yeah, I paid for it all. I didn't mind at first. They were my parents, after all. They'd raised me, sacrificed for me. And when they hit a rough patch after my dad got laid off, it felt natural to step up. I just didn't realize stepping up meant I'd end up carrying everyone, especially my sister, Emily, on my back. Emily is 29 and allergic to effort. She's one of those people who somehow turns every situation into someone else's problem. No job ever treats her right. No apartment is in the right energy zone. And no boyfriend ever understands her artistic soul. My parents call her their sensitive one. I call her what she is, comfortable. She's lived at home since college and has never once paid a bill. But to hear my mom tell it, Emily just needs time to figure herself out. It's been nearly a decade. At this point, she could have figured herself out, written a book about it, and had it adapted into a movie. Meanwhile, I got married, had a daughter named Lily, and bought a small house across town. I work as an HVAC technician, good, steady job, but it's not exactly glamorous. Still, every month, I'd wire money to my parents to cover their utilities, groceries, and whatever emergencies popped up. The thing is, the emergencies were constant. The water heater broke, the roof leaked, mom's car needed new tires, dad's prescription wasn't covered. It never stopped. And they always had this way of asking that made it sound like I was the only one who could help. Dean, honey, we wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious, my mom would say, voice trembling just enough to make me feel guilty for hesitating. Or my dad, who'd sigh into the phone. You know how hard it's been since the plant closed. You're the only one doing well right now. Doing well. That phrase became their favorite justification. It didn't matter that I had a mortgage, a toddler, and student loans of my own. I was doing well, so I could handle it. And every time I told myself I'd say no next time, I'd cave anyway. It wasn't until about a year ago that my wife, Claire, started getting frustrated. Dean, she said one night after I sent another payment, this isn't sustainable. You've got to stop being their safety net. It's not your job to fund their lifestyle. I wanted to defend them, but deep down, I knew she was right. Still, how do you just stop? I told her I'd slow it down, help them only when necessary. Except necessary was a moving target. The dynamic became routine. Emily lounging at home, mom bragging to her friends about her wonderful son who takes care of everything, and me juggling bills like some kind of financial contortionist. Then, a few months ago, my parents called me over for dinner. That alone was rare. They usually asked for help, not offered hospitality. So I went, thinking maybe they had good news. When I walked in, the house looked the same as always, cluttered, cozy in that we never throw anything away kind of way. Emily was on the couch watching a show on her tablet, and mom was stirring something on the stove. Hey, stranger, she said brightly. We haven't seen you in forever. Forever was an exaggeration. I'd fixed their washing machine 2 weeks earlier, but I smiled anyway. Work's been crazy. How's everyone doing? Dad came in from the garage, wiping his hands on a rag. Better now that you're here. We were actually hoping to talk to you about something. And there it was. The tone. That we were hoping preamble that always led to a request. I felt my shoulders tense, but sat down anyway. Dad cleared his throat. You know your sister's been having a hard time lately. I glanced at Emily. She didn't even look up from her screen. Uh-huh. Well, she's been thinking about taking some time to focus on her art full-time. Paint, maybe start a YouTube channel. But to do that, she'd need a little cushion. I stared at him. A cushion? Mom jumped in. Just a small loan, honey. You know she'll pay it back when her channel takes off. I almost laughed. Emily couldn't hold a job for more than 3 weeks, but sure, her imaginary art channel would be the exception. Mom, Dad, I can't keep sending money like this. I've got my own family to take care of. Mom's smile faltered. Oh, of course, we understand. It's just, you've always been so generous. Generous doesn't mean bottomless, I said quietly. Emily finally chimed in without looking away from her tablet. Wow, Dean, nobody's asking you to save the world. It's just a few $100. That was the first time I ever heard her use that tone with me, dripping with entitlement, like I was being unreasonable for setting a boundary. I didn't respond. I just stood up, thanked them for dinner, and went home. For the next couple of months, I kept my distance. I stopped sending money unless it was for something genuinely urgent, and even then, I asked questions. I thought maybe they'd get the hint. They didn't. Instead, they started guilt-tripping me in more subtle ways. My mom would post on Facebook about how families should always take care of each other, or dad would make comments like, "Not everyone remembers where they came from." It was exhausting. Then came the night everything cracked. Lily's 5th birthday was coming up, and Claire had planned a little sleepover for her and 2 of her friends. I'd promised to help, but work threw a wrench in the plan when my coworker called out sick. I was scheduled for an overnight emergency repair across town, something I couldn't skip without risking my job. Claire looked panicked. "Dean, I can handle most of it, but what about Lily? She's going to be up early, and I'll be dead tired. Maybe your parents could take her just for the night." It seemed reasonable. My parents adored Lily, or at least, they always said they did. So I called. Mom picked up, her usual cheerful tone in place. "Hey, sweetheart. What's up?" "Hey, Mom. I was wondering if you and Dad could watch Lily tomorrow night. Just overnight. I've got a work thing, and Claire's hosting a sleepover for her friends' kids." There was a pause, then a laugh. "Oh, Dean, we'd love to. But, well, we were actually planning a little weekend to ourselves. Just some peace and quiet." "Okay, that's fine," I said, trying to stay polite. "What about Emily? Is she around?" Mom hesitated. "She's resting. She's been under a lot of stress lately. You know how sensitive she is." I could feel my patience thinning. "Mom, I'm just asking for one night. I've been helping out for years. I don't think it's too much to ask for a little help in return." That's when she said it. Calm, almost rehearsed. "Dean, we're not your servants." The words hit like a slap. For a second, I thought I misheard her. "What? You always expect us to drop everything," she continued. "You have your own family now. We've done our part." I stood there, phone in hand, staring at the wall. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. After everything, 5 years of bills, repairs, sacrifices, they couldn't babysit their granddaughter for a single night. When I hung up, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just anger. It was clarity. I'd spent years being their safety net while they treated me like a convenience. And now, when I needed the tiniest bit of help, they showed me exactly where I stood. That was the night I decided things were going to change. But the thing about change is, it doesn't happen cleanly. It unravels. Slowly, painfully. And when it finally snaps, it takes everything with it. And I had no idea just how far that unraveling was about to go. After that phone call, something in me went quiet. Not in the peaceful way, more like the kind of quiet that comes right before a storm. I didn't yell, didn't rant. I just sat at the kitchen table that night, staring at my phone, replaying those words in my head. "We're not your servants." It was almost funny. If anyone had been acting like a servant for the past 5 years, it was me. Claire could tell something was off. She put her hand on my shoulder. "They said no, didn't they?" "Yeah," I said flatly. "They're not my servants." Her eyebrows furrowed. "They said that." I nodded. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Claire exhaled through her nose. "You know what? Good. Let them handle their own bills from now on." I wanted to agree. I really did. But old habits are hard to kill. Some part of me still hoped they'd realize how unfair they'd been and apologize. Instead, what came next made me realize they didn't just take me for granted, they expected it. The following week, I got a text from my mom. "Dean, honey, the power company made a mistake again. Could you call them? You're so much better with that stuff than your father." No mention of Lily. No apology. Just another task. I ignored it for a day, then 2. On the 3rd day, she called. "Dean, did you see my message? The power's about to get shut off." "Mom," I said slowly, "I'm not calling the power company for you. You can do that yourself." There was a pause, then a sharp inhale. "Dean, we've always done everything we could for you." I cut her off. "No, Mom. You've done a lot for me when I was a kid, and I'm grateful. But I've been paying your bills for years. I'm tired." Her voice hardened. "You've changed, Dean. Ever since you got married. It's like you think you're better than us." That line hit me right where she wanted it to. It's what she always did, turn guilt into a weapon. And maybe once upon a time it would have worked. But not this time. "No," I said. "I just think I deserve some respect." She hung up on me. 2 days later, I got a call from my dad. I half expected him to yell, but instead, his voice was low, almost disappointed. "Son, your mother's been crying. She feels like you've abandoned us." Dad, come on, I said. You two pushed me away. You said you're not my servants, remember? He sighed. She didn't mean it like that. She's just emotional. You know how she gets. Then maybe she should think before she says stuff like that. He muttered something under his breath, then said, Emily told us you've been cold to everyone lately. She's worried about you. I almost laughed. Emily's worried about me? The same Emily who hasn't paid rent since Obama was president. Watch your tone, he snapped. She's been helping your mother around the house. She's trying. Helping? You mean sitting around doing nothing? That earned me silence. Long, loaded silence. Then he said, You know, Dean, not everyone has your advantages. Emily's had a tougher time adjusting. That word again, advantages. Like I hadn't earned every cent I made. After that, I stopped answering their calls altogether. Weeks passed. I focused on work, spent time with Lily, tried to rebuild a sense of normalcy that didn't revolve around being the family ATM. For a little while, it worked. But just when I thought I was free, they pulled me right back in. It started with a knock at the door one Saturday morning. When I opened it, Emily stood there, arms crossed, looking annoyed rather than apologetic. Mom said you haven't been answering your phone. That's because I don't want to, I said. She rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. Dramatic? You guys refused to watch your niece for one night after I paid every bill you've had for 5 years. Oh my God, are you still on about that? She said. You act like you're some kind of martyr. Nobody asked you to pay all that stuff. That sentence made my jaw clench. Nobody asked. Emily, you benefited from it. You lived in that house rent-free while I paid their mortgage. So what? You're the older brother. You're supposed to help out. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was unbelievable. You're almost 30. You're supposed to help out too. She frowned. You always think you're better than everyone. Just because you've got a job and a family doesn't mean you're some hero. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. I'm not a hero. I'm just done being taken advantage of. She huffed. Whatever. Mom's been stressed because of you. The least you could do is stop ignoring her. Emily, I said quietly. Tell Mom I'll talk to her when she's ready to treat me like a son, not a wallet. Then I shut the door. I thought that would be the end of it. But the next day, my phone blew up. Texts, calls, voicemails. My mom had apparently told half the family that I'd turned my back on them. My aunt even messaged me saying, Family isn't about keeping score, Dean. You should call your mother. That's when I realized. Mom wasn't just guilt-tripping me privately anymore. She was turning the whole family against me. Over the next few weeks, things got worse. Every time there was a family gathering, someone would make a comment. Dean, it must be nice to forget where you came from. Or, not everyone has it as easy as you. Easy. That word stung every time. I'd worked 50-hour weeks for years to give my daughter a decent life. Nothing about it was easy. Then, one Sunday, I finally decided to stop by my parents' house. Part of me wanted closure. Another part just wanted to see if they'd softened. When I walked in, the air was thick, like I'd interrupted a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear. Mom was at the kitchen table, sorting through a pile of envelopes. Oh, she said, pretending to be surprised. Didn't expect to see you. Yeah, I said. I wanted to talk. Dad didn't look up from his paper. We've been fine, Dean. Emily's been helping out a lot lately. I glanced at Emily, who was scrolling on her phone. Helping how? She's been contributing, Mom said quickly. I noticed a shiny new laptop on the counter, something I knew neither of my parents could afford. Did you buy her that? Mom hesitated just a second too long. It was on sale. I almost laughed. On sale with what money? Dad slammed the newspaper down. Enough, Dean. You don't need to interrogate us. I'm not interrogating anyone, I said. I'm just trying to understand how you can afford new stuff when 2 months ago you were crying about overdue bills. Mom crossed her arms. We managed. We always do. That's when I realized what was really going on. Emily wasn't helping them. They were helping her with my money. The money I'd been sending every month for groceries and repairs. I took a step back, heart pounding. You've been giving her the money, haven't you? Mom's lips pressed together. She needed it more than we did. That sentence broke something in me. More than you did? More than your granddaughter who needed school supplies? More than the family that's been scraping by while I've been paying your bills? Mom's voice rose. You don't understand. Emily's fragile. She doesn't handle life the way you do. Then maybe she should start, I said coldly. Dad stood up, his face red. Don't talk to your mother that way. I met his eyes. Then stop letting her manipulate me. That's when Emily stood up too, eyes flashing. You know what, Dean? You're just jealous that mom and dad love me more. You always have been. I felt my stomach drop. She said it so casually, like she was stating a fact everyone already knew. Mom didn't deny it. She didn't even flinch. That was the moment I realized it had never been about helping family. It had always been about keeping her comfortable, no matter the cost. I turned toward the door. You're right, Emily, I said quietly. They do love you more. But you're about to find out what happens when that love stops paying the bills. And I walked out. But I wasn't done, not even close. That night, I went home and opened every financial document I had. Bank transfers, bills, invoices. For 5 years, I'd been the one keeping them afloat. And suddenly, I realized I had proof of everything. They thought I was their servant. They were about to learn what happens when the servant quits. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the dining table with my laptop open, a mug of cold coffee beside me, and a stack of bank statements spread across the wood like a paper graveyard. Every single transaction was there: electric bills, insurance payments, cash transfers. The sheer number made my stomach churn. I had known it was bad, but seeing the total laid out in front of me, 5 years worth of help, it hit differently. Over $60,000. 60,000. That was a down payment on a second house, a college fund, half a decade of my daughter's future, evaporated in the name of family. I scrolled through the transfers one by one, reading my own notes in the memos. For mom's car, for roof repairs, for Emily's laptop. The last one hurt most because I remembered that day vividly. Emily's old laptop had supposedly died, and she'd told me she couldn't do her freelance work without it. I'd bought her a new one, same day. I could still hear her fake surprise. Oh my God, Dean, you didn't have to do that. Yeah, no kidding. Claire came into the kitchen around 2 a.m., her hair tied up in a messy bun, wearing one of my old shirts. You're still up? Couldn't sleep, I said without looking up. You want to see something crazy? She sat beside me, rubbing her eyes. I turned the laptop toward her and pointed at the total. Her jaw dropped. Dean, is that? Every penny I've sent them. Since 2019. She leaned closer, scrolling slowly. This can't be right. You were sending them this much every month. Yeah. And get this, half of it probably went straight to Emily. Claire rubbed her temple. You need to stop. Like, completely. No explanations, no second chances. Just stop. I nodded. I know, but I want to do it right this time. I'm cutting it clean. Except life had other plans. A week later, I got a call from my mom. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. Dean. Her voice was syrupy sweet. We haven't talked in so long. It's been 9 days, I said. Well, that's a long time for a family. I said nothing. She sighed. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know we're having a little get-together for Emily. She's finally launching her art business. Isn't that exciting? Her what? Her art business, Mom repeated, as if I were hard of hearing. She's selling her paintings now, and she's hosting a launch party this weekend. It would mean so much to her if you came. I could feel my blood pressure rising. You're telling me Emily, who's never had a job longer than a month, suddenly has a business? Don't be negative, Dean, she said. She's finally found her passion. She's even renting a little studio space downtown. Your father and I helped her with the deposit. I froze. You what? The deposit, she said again, breezy as ever. It wasn't much. Just enough to get her started. I took a slow breath. With what money, Mom? You guys can barely cover your bills. She hesitated. We used some savings. Your savings? You mean my money? The money I sent you for bills. Dean, don't twist things, she said sharply. You gave that money freely. I gave it to help you survive, not to bankroll Emily's hobby. Dean, I don't appreciate your tone, she said, her voice rising. You're acting like we stole from you. That word, stole, hung in the air. She didn't deny it, just got defensive. I ended the call without saying goodbye. 2 days later, curiosity, or maybe masochism, got the better of me. Against every logical instinct, I decided to go to that launch party. Claire told me not to. You're just going to get angry, she said. I need to see it for myself, I told her. The studio was a small, rented space on Main Street. One of those old brick buildings converted into something trendy for the artsy crowd. When I walked in, the first thing that hit me wasn't the smell of paint. It was the sound of my mother's voice echoing proudly through the room. Oh, isn't it wonderful? She was saying to a group of people. She's finally found her calling. We've been supporting her every step of the way. Of course they had. I scanned the room. Emily was at the center, wearing a flowing white dress and smiling like she'd just solved world peace. Her paintings hung on the walls, abstract stuff, splashes of color that looked more like therapy sessions than art. And next to her, on a small table, sat a fancy new MacBook, a tablet, and a digital camera. All brand new. "Dean," my mom said when she spotted me. "You came. Wouldn't miss it," I said, forcing a smile. Emily turned. "Wow, didn't think you'd actually show up. Guess you're not as bitter as I thought." I clenched my jaw. Just curious to see what $60,000 looks like on canvas. Her smile faltered. "Excuse me." "You heard me." My mom quickly stepped in. "Dean, don't make a scene." I laughed under my breath. "Don't worry. I wouldn't want to embarrass the family." But I couldn't stop staring at the setup, the rented space, the equipment, the refreshments. All of it screamed expensive. There was no way she'd done this without my money. I stayed long enough to make sure everyone saw me, then quietly slipped out. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't even look back. That night, I went home and started digging deeper. I logged into the utility accounts I used to manage for my parents. The first thing I noticed was that the billing address had been changed to my parents' email. Fair enough. But then I saw the payment history. They hadn't paid a single bill themselves since I stopped sending money. Not one. The accounts were overdue again. Then I opened my credit report. That's when my stomach dropped. A new credit card. Joint account. My name and my father's. Limit, $15,000. Opened 6 months ago. I felt my hands go numb. I knew I hadn't opened that card. "Claire," I called, voice shaking. "Come look at this." She rushed over. "What's wrong?" I turned the screen toward her. They opened a credit card. In my name. Her eyes widened. "You're kidding." I wish I was. I clicked through the details. The address, the phone number, everything matched theirs. There were transactions too. Thousands of dollars worth of charges at furniture stores, a spa, a boutique. "Oh my God," Claire whispered. "They stole your identity." I sat back in my chair, staring blankly at the screen. They didn't just take my money. They took my name. The next morning, I called the bank. The representative confirmed it. The account had been opened jointly with my father. He'd used my social security number to qualify. That was it. That was the moment something inside me snapped completely. I called my parents. No answer. I texted them. Nothing. Then I drove over there. When I arrived, Emily's car was in the driveway. I didn't bother knocking. I walked straight in. My dad was on the couch, watching TV. "Dean, what's this about?" "You tell me," I said, holding up my phone with the credit report on the screen. "Why is there a credit card with my name on it?" He blinked. "Oh, that. It's just temporary. We needed it for some purchases, and you've got better credit." "Temporary," I said, incredulous. "Dad, that's fraud." He waved a hand dismissively. "Don't be dramatic. You'll pay it off easily." I felt heat rise to my face. "You used my name without asking. You've spent thousands." Mom came in from the kitchen, drying her hands. "Dean, lower your voice. You're scaring your father." "I'm scaring him," I said, laughing bitterly. "You stole my identity. You spent my money. And now you're asking me to calm down." She frowned. "We didn't steal. We borrowed. Your family. It's all the same in the end." "No," I said, stepping closer. "It's not all the same. You crossed a line." That's when Emily chimed in from the doorway, arms folded, smirking. "You act like you're some saint, Dean. You've been helping for years. Why stop now?" I turned to her slowly. "Because it's never enough for you people. You take and take until there's nothing left." She rolled her eyes. "You're so dramatic. Mom and Dad needed help. You had it to give. End of story." "Not anymore," I said. My mom's face hardened. "So you're just going to abandon us? After everything we did for you?" I stared at her. "What exactly did you do for me, Mom? Besides make me believe love had to be earned through paying bills?" She didn't answer. I turned toward the door, heart pounding. "You know what? You can keep your credit card. Enjoy the debt. Because I'm done being your safety net." My dad's voice rose behind me. "If you walk out that door, don't bother coming back." I didn't even hesitate. Good. But as I was leaving, Emily said something that made me stop cold. "Oh, by the way," she said with a grin. "Mom told me you're planning to pull support for their mortgage. You might want to think twice about that. You're still listed as a co-signer." I froze. "What?" She smirked. "Yeah. Guess you didn't read the fine print when you helped them buy the house." My throat went dry. "You're lying." Mom's silence told me everything I needed to know. That's when it all clicked. The endless guilt trips, the requests for help, the loans that were never paid back. It wasn't just manipulation. It was strategy. They'd tied me to them legally, financially, emotionally. I walked out that door shaking, furious, and completely hollow. I had thought I'd hit my limit before, but I was wrong. This was the real betrayal. And if they thought I was going to let it slide, well, they were about to learn just how much of my father's stubbornness I'd inherited. When I left their house that day, I didn't drive home right away. I parked in a grocery store lot a few blocks away and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel until my hands hurt. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger would have been easier. What I felt was heavier, emptier. The kind of hollow that makes you question everything you've ever done for someone. For 34 years, I believed family meant loyalty. I believed love meant sacrifice. But that day, I realized my definition of family had been one-sided. My parents didn't love me the way I loved them. To them, I was a resource, reliable, consistent, replaceable the second I stopped being useful. It was a strange thing, realizing that. It didn't make me cry. It didn't even make me yell. It just broke something cleanly inside me. When I finally got home, Claire met me at the door, took one look at my face, and said quietly, "They did something, didn't they?" I handed her the stack of paperwork I'd printed, the credit card statement, the cosigner agreement, all of it. She read it silently, her expression darkening by the second. When she finished, she looked up at me and said the simplest, hardest thing. "You need to protect yourself." That night, I barely slept. My mind wouldn't stop racing. Every memory felt tainted now. I remembered my mom calling me her miracle boy when I got my first job out of college. My dad patting my back and saying, "You're going to take care of us one day." Back then, I thought it was a compliment. Now I saw it for what it was, foreshadowing. The next morning, I made 3 calls, one to my bank, one to a lawyer, and one to a credit protection agency. The first confirmed what I already knew. The joint credit card was real. The second told me exactly how much trouble I was in. The lawyer, a calm middle-aged woman named Harriet, listened patiently as I explained everything. How I'd co-signed their mortgage years ago, how I'd been sending money monthly, and how they'd opened a credit account using my information. When I was done, she sighed softly. "Dean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is bad, but it's not irreversible. Can I press charges?" She hesitated. "Technically, yes, but it's complicated because they're family. The bank will need you to file a fraud affidavit, and that means your parents will be investigated. They could face criminal charges." I leaned back in my chair, running my hand over my face. "I don't want them in jail. I just want my life back." "Then we start small," she said. "Freeze your credit. Close all joint accounts. And from this point forward, you document everything." That became my routine. Every lunch break, every evening after work, I'd dig through old emails, bank statements, and paperwork. I built a timeline of every dollar I'd ever sent them. Claire helped too. She was meticulous, cross-checking amounts and receipts like it was a crime investigation. And in a way, it was. But the emotional fallout hit hard. A week later, my mom called from a different number. I didn't answer. Then she left a voicemail, her voice thick with fake sadness. "Dean, we don't know what's gotten into you. Your father hasn't been sleeping. You're tearing this family apart. Emily's been crying nonstop. You're breaking your mother's heart." It was impressive, really. No apology, no accountability, just the same emotional manipulation, weaponized with precision. Claire listened to it with me. "She's not sad because she hurt you," she said softly. "She's sad because she lost control of you." That line stuck with me for days. Eventually, the financial chaos settled. I filed disputes, froze my credit, got my name off the utilities. It was exhausting, but each step felt like reclaiming a small piece of myself. Still, even as I made progress, the guilt lingered. Some nights, I'd catch myself wondering if I'd gone too far. Maybe I had overreacted. Maybe they were just desperate. But then I'd look at Lily, asleep in her bed, clutching her stuffed rabbit. And I'd remember what was really at stake, her future. The pattern had to end with me. Over the next few months, I focused on my own family for the first time in years. I started spending weekends actually living instead of fixing things. Claire and I took Lily to the zoo, went hiking, cooked together. We laughed more. It felt like waking up from a long, toxic dream. And work? That started going better too. I'd always been the reliable guy who did his job and went home. But without the constant stress of my parents draining me dry, I had energy again. My boss noticed. One afternoon, he called me into his office. "Dean, you've been killing it lately. We've got a supervisor position opening next month. I want you to apply." I just stared at him. "Seriously? Seriously? You've earned it." When I told Claire that night, she hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "See," she said, smiling. "The universe pays you back when you stop letting people take advantage of you." For the first time in years, I believed that. But of course, peace never lasts long when you're dealing with family like mine. In early spring, I got a call from my aunt, my mother's sister. We weren't close, but she'd always been the reasonable one, the type to stay neutral during family drama. "Dean," she said carefully, "I thought you should know. Your parents are planning to sell their house." I froze. "Sell it?" "Yes. They said they can't afford the mortgage anymore. But they also mentioned you're a co-signer, so technically, you'll have to sign off on the sale." My heart sank. "Do you know why they're selling?" She hesitated. "They said they need the money for Emily's art business." "Of course. Thanks, Aunt Carol," I said quietly. "I'll handle it." After I hung up, I sat there in silence for a long time. Selling the house meant I'd be dragged right back into their financial mess. If they defaulted, it could wreck my credit again. I needed to be smart, methodical. So I called Harriet, my lawyer, and explained the situation. "Here's what you do," she said. "Before they can sell, request a full account summary from the lender. That'll show the outstanding balance, late payments, and whose names are attached. If they've been delinquent, you might have grounds to remove yourself from the loan entirely." That became my new mission. Every day after work, I handled paperwork, phone calls, and documents. I treated it like a second job. And while all this was happening, something unexpected began to shift inside me. I stopped needing their approval. I stopped waiting for them to realize what they'd done. I started feeling free. I didn't tell them about my promotion. I didn't invite them to Lily's kindergarten recital. And I didn't respond when they tried reaching out through other relatives. For once, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. Claire and I started talking about the future again. We wanted to move, get a bigger place, maybe closer to her parents. They were the complete opposite of mine. Kind, respectful, always offering help without strings attached. They treated Lily like a blessing, not a burden. We found a beautiful house on the edge of town, a fixer-upper with good bones. The kind of place that needed someone patient and steady. Fitting, really. While I was filling out the mortgage paperwork, the bank ran my updated credit report. And when the broker told me my score had rebounded, almost perfect again, I actually laughed out loud. It felt like a full-circle moment. For months, I'd been rebuilding quietly, piece by piece. But I wasn't just repairing numbers. I was repairing me. Still, part of me knew the story wasn't over. People like my parents don't disappear quietly. They circle back when they realize their supply has dried up. And sure enough, one Saturday afternoon, I got the call. It was my father this time. His voice was tired, shaky. "Dean, we need to talk." I almost hung up, but something in his tone stopped me. "What is it?" He took a breath. "We're losing the house." I said nothing. "They're foreclosing," he continued. "We tried everything, but we fell behind. The bank said you'll get notified since you're on the loan." I kept my voice steady. "What do you want me to do?" "We need help. Just this once. If you could cover the missed payments." "No," I said quietly. "Dean, please," he said. "If they foreclose, we'll lose everything. Your mother's sick over this." I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered every manipulation, every dollar, every lie. "I told you this would happen," I said. "You made your choices. Now you deal with them." He was silent for a long time. Then he said, softly, "You've changed." "I had to," I replied, and hung up. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, she asked me, "Daddy, are Grandma and Grandpa coming to my birthday this year?" I hesitated. "No, sweetheart. Not this year." She thought about it for a second, then nodded. "That's okay. Mommy says some people are nicer when you love them from far away." Out of the mouths of babes. I kissed her forehead and turned off the light. Standing in the hallway, I realized something simple but profound. I wasn't just walking away from my parents. I was breaking a cycle. I was showing my daughter what boundaries look like, what self-respect looks like. And deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. My parents had lost their safety net, and desperate people do desperate things. I just didn't know yet how far they were willing to go. It was 2 months after the foreclosure call when everything started to line up, slowly, quietly, like dominoes tipping in the background while no one was watching. My parents had gone silent, which was unusual. Normally, even after a fight, they'd find some way to reach out, either through guilt, gossip, or one of my cousins acting as their messenger. But this time, nothing. No calls, no letters, just silence. It should have felt peaceful, and it did at first. I focused on work, on my new house, on Lily's 6th birthday party. Life was stable, almost boring. But a small part of me didn't trust the calm. My parents' silence wasn't peace, it was plotting. And I was right. One Tuesday afternoon, I got an envelope in the mail from the bank that had handled my parents' mortgage. I opened it expecting another notice about foreclosure. Instead, it was a statement showing the house had already been sold. Not foreclosed. Sold. I frowned. That wasn't possible. I hadn't signed off on anything, and my name was still listed on the loan. Then I noticed the signature line. There it was, my name, scrawled in fake penmanship under the sale authorization. I stared at it for a long time, heartbeat pounding. They'd forged my signature. Again, I called my lawyer immediately. Harriet sounded less surprised than I expected. I was wondering when they'd pull something like that, she said. Do you still have the documents showing their previous fraud? The credit card, the mortgage co-signing, everything. Yeah, I said. All of it. Good, she replied. Then you have leverage. Her tone was calm, but her words lit a slow, quiet spark inside me. Leverage. That was the key. For years, they'd used my guilt and love as leverage. But now, I had proof. Real, legal, undeniable proof. Over the next week, I started preparing my response, not with rage, but with precision. Harriet drafted a letter addressed to both my parents and their real estate agent. It was formal, cold, and devastatingly effective. It stated that the sale had been conducted illegally, that I had never authorized the signature, and that if they didn't return the funds to an escrow account immediately, I would file both a civil suit and a criminal complaint for identity theft and fraud. But that was just the surface. The real revenge wasn't going to come from the legal side. It was going to come from how I handled the fallout. See, in the months since I'd pulled away, I'd learned a lot about how financial systems worked. I'd also learned that when people commit fraud while using your name, it's not just a moral betrayal. It's a paper trail waiting to be exposed. With Harriet's help, I started quietly contacting every institution my parents had ever used, banks, utilities, insurance companies, and requested statements, authorizations, and documentation under my name. Every single forged signature, every unauthorized account, every temporary favor, they turned permanent. I collected them all. By the time I was done, I had a 60-page file that told a story better than any confrontation ever could. Then, I did something bold. I emailed it, not to my parents, but to the extended family. Every aunt, uncle, cousin, and family friend who'd ever sent me guilt texts about forgiving your parents. Every person who judged me for forgetting where you came from. I attached the file with a simple, polite message. I wanted to clear up some misunderstandings about why I no longer support my parents financially. These documents explain everything. I didn't embellish. I didn't rant. I just let the truth speak for itself. The effect was instant. Within hours, my phone blew up, not with hate, but with shock. My Aunt Carol called first. "Dean," she said, "I had no idea. They told everyone you abandoned them, that you were selfish." "I know," I said quietly. "Well, they're about to have a lot of explaining to do." By the next day, the gossip well had turned completely. My parents' social circle, people who'd spent years praising them, started whispering about fraud and fake signatures. Emily's art business page, which had once been filled with comments like "so proud of you," now had people asking if her studio was funded by stolen money. I didn't need to lift a finger. Their reputation crumbled on its own. But that wasn't the end. The bank, after reviewing my lawyer's letter and the forged signature, launched an internal fraud investigation. When they reached out to my parents for verification, they tried to play dumb, claiming it was all a misunderstanding. But handwriting analysis doesn't lie. Within a month, the bank froze the sale funds and filed a police report. I didn't even have to file charges myself. The system did it for me. When the investigator called to confirm my statement, he asked, "Do you want to pursue restitution?" I thought about it. About all the money, all the years. Then I said, "No, I just want my name cleared." He paused. "That's rare. Most people want payback." "Oh," I said, smiling faintly. "I already have that." Because while my parents were dealing with fraud investigators and frozen assets, my own life was taking off. My promotion had gone through, my salary had doubled, and the company was even paying for my HVAC certification upgrades. Claire and I finished renovating our new home. Lily had a backyard now, a real one, with grass and a little wooden swing set I built myself. And for the first time in my adult life, my bank account actually grew instead of shrinking. A few weeks later, out of nowhere, I got a letter from my mom. Handwritten. No apology, no explanation, just self-pity. We never meant for things to get this bad. You've turned everyone against us. We've lost everything, Dean. How could you do this to your own family? I read it once, then folded it neatly and set it aside. Then I took a photo of the letter and texted it to Harriet with one line. Proof that they still don't get it. She replied, "Keep it for the record." I didn't respond. Instead, I went outside, sat on the porch, and watched Lily chase bubbles in the yard. The air smelled like summer grass and new beginnings. For years, I thought revenge meant destroying the people who hurt you. But sitting there, I realized the real revenge wasn't in lawsuits or payback. It was in peace. It was in living the kind of life they could never manipulate again. Still, I'd be lying if I said I didn't get a small flicker of satisfaction when, months later, Emily reached out too. Her message popped up on Facebook. "I can't believe you did this. Everyone thinks we're scammers now. You ruined our lives." I typed back, "I didn't ruin them, Emily. You did." And then, for the first time in my life, I hit block. It was clean, final, quiet. As the months rolled by, word spread that my parents had moved out of town. Their house sale had been reversed, their accounts audited, their debts piling up. And me? I'd never been freer. But there's one last twist in this story, one I didn't see coming. A few weeks ago, I got a call from my aunt again. "Dean," she said, "your parents are trying to contact you through a lawyer. Something about settling things." "Settling what?" I asked. They didn't say, but it sounded serious. I hung up slowly, feeling that same calm I'd felt the night everything began unraveling. Because now, for the first time ever, I wasn't the one scrambling to fix their mess. They were coming to me. And this time, I'd be the one deciding how the story ends. The call from my aunt stayed in the back of my mind for a week. I didn't answer right away. I'd learned over time that when people like my parents say settle things, what they really mean is get out of trouble. Still, part of me wanted closure, not for them, but for myself. I wanted to hear them admit what they'd done, even if only once. So when the letter from their lawyer arrived a few days later, I didn't hesitate to open it. It was short and strangely formal. My parents were offering to resolve all outstanding financial matters by signing over the remainder of the sale proceeds from the house, around $30,000, to me, in exchange for a written statement that I would not pursue further legal action. I sat there reading it over and over, my heart heavy but steady. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't even repentance. It was desperation dressed as generosity. Claire leaned over my shoulder, scanning the letter. "You're not actually going to sign that, are you?" I shook my head slowly. "No, I'm not going to sign anything. I'm done playing their game." Instead, I called Harriet. She reviewed the letter, then chuckled softly. "They're trying to make themselves look noble before the hammer drops. The investigation's nearly done, Dean. You'll get your official clearance letter soon." And she was right. 2 weeks later, I got a thick envelope from the bank's fraud department confirming that all accounts tied to my name had been closed, the fraudulent debts erased, and my credit restored. The report concluded with one sentence that felt like a full exhale after years of holding my breath. The investigation confirms that Mr. Dean Harper was the victim of identity and financial fraud perpetrated by immediate family members. Victim. It felt strange reading that word, because for so long, I'd been the provider, the fixer, the rescuer. But now, seeing it in black and white, I realized that's exactly what I'd been, a victim of my own loyalty. After that, I didn't think about them much. Life moved on. Claire and I focused on building something real, something that didn't depend on guilt or obligation. My promotion turned into a full managerial role, and we finally took our first real family vacation. Lily started first grade, fearless and bright, and I found myself quietly grateful that she'd never have to grow up the way I did, confused, guilt into love, trapped in someone else's expectations. But sometimes life brings things full circle in ways you don't expect. It was late autumn when I saw them again. I hadn't planned to. I was running errands when I spotted two familiar figures sitting outside a small diner near the edge of town, my parents. They looked smaller somehow. My dad's hair was grayer, his shoulders hunched. My mom wore that same floral coat she'd had for years, but it hung loose on her frame. For a second, I almost didn't recognize them. I don't know what compelled me, but I walked in. They looked up as the bell above the door rang. My mom's face went pale. My dad froze mid-sip of his coffee. "Dean," she whispered. "Mom." "Dad." We stood there in silence for a moment. Then my dad cleared his throat. "You look good, son." "So do you." I lied. My mom looked down. "We heard about your promotion." "Word gets around," I said evenly. There was another long pause before she finally said, "We lost everything, you know. The house, the savings, even Emily's art studio. She moved to another state." "I heard," I said softly. "We didn't mean for things to get this bad," she continued. We thought we could handle it." I stared at her. "You thought stealing from your son was handling it?" She winced, tears filling her eyes. "We were scared. We didn't know how to stop." For a long time, I said nothing. Then I sat down across from them. "You had a choice. You had hundreds of chances to stop. You just didn't want to." My dad's jaw tightened. "You don't understand." "No," I interrupted, calm but firm. "I understand perfectly. You wanted me to clean up your mess until there was nothing left of me. But I finally learned something. Sometimes walking away is the only way to survive people who keep burning you." Mom's voice trembled. "You hate us." I shook my head. "No, I don't hate you. But I don't owe you anything anymore." We sat in silence again. The diner's clock ticked loudly above the hum of conversation. My mother dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. My father stared at the table, his pride deflating in slow motion. Finally, I stood up. "I hope you find peace, Mom. I really do." Then I turned and walked out. Outside, the air was crisp and clean. I stood there for a second, breathing it in, realizing that for the first time in my life, I wasn't walking away in anger. I was walking away free. When I got home that night, Lily ran to me, waving a drawing she'd made. "Look, Daddy, it's us." She held it up proudly, three stick figures holding hands under a bright sun. No grandparents, no drama, just us. I smiled and knelt down beside her. "It's perfect, sweetheart." Claire came into the room, smiling softly as she watched us. "You okay?" I looked around, at the house we'd built, the family we'd protected, the life we'd fought for. "Yeah," I said quietly. "For the first time in a long time, I really am." And that's when it hit me, the truth I'd been chasing for years. Sometimes revenge isn't about making them pay. It's about taking your life back, brick by brick, until there's nothing left they can destroy. I framed Lily's drawing that night and hung it by the front door. Every morning when I leave for work, I see it, a reminder of where I came from, and more importantly, how far I've come. Because in the end, I didn't just stop being their servant. I became my own man.